All right, so far it's just you and me. Now, of course, there's like 3 minutes until it's technically supposed to start, but is there anything, I mean, I always have things I can come up with, okay? But is there anything in particular that you'd like me to go over tonight? All right. Well, what I thought I might do is kind of walk through creating a class. So you can kind of see what the different components are in a class, and hopefully compare that to like a program. So because we're going to be doing a lot of user-defined data types, which is the developing the classes, and then technically a program is also a class, but it's a special kind of a class that doesn't have the instance variables and all of those components that go into it. So if that's okay with you, I thought maybe I would just walk through how we would go about creating a class. Okay. And hopefully somebody else will join us in here. Okay, so when you come into BlueJ, when you're doing a brand new assignment, so I'm just going to create a new project here, and I will call it the week to Q and A. Okay. So you create your project, do your homework, however it is that you're starting out with, so you can create brand new, and it's going to pop you up to look just like this, and there's nothing in there. Now if you're going to create a class, what you're going to do is you're going to start with new class here, and we're just creating a basic class, and I'm just going to do like a dog class, which is kind of what we went through the examples in the week 1. So I'll just use dog here and call it dog, obviously. Okay, so this is my class name dog, and you can see I got the little slashy lines through here, which means it hasn't been compiled, so it's not usable. And if I open it up, BlueJ is trying to be really helpful. Okay, so BlueJ is doing some work for us here. I wanted to make this bigger. Oh, well, my font size is 16. Are you able to see that, or do you want me to make it a little bigger? Okay, great. So BlueJ helps us out a little bit. They give us a Java doc right here at the beginning, which is it's a kind of a commenting section that describes it. So we could definitely put our name right here, or my name, Tina Compston. Okay, and then you can put a version or a date or whatever it is. So if we were creating a program, we might put a version, or we could put an actual date up here, 22nd, 2018. Okay, so you can put information, and then you would put whatever your description is, example. And these Java docs, I'll be showing those over the next couple weeks. So they're like amazing things. So they allow you to self-document your program as you're going along. Programmers are horrible at documentation, and including myself in that mix. So Java kind of built the whole documentation right in as part of the program. And so as you're filling out these Java doc comment statements, it's actually will let you build documentation. And if we have time, I'll show you that. It's really, really slick. Okay, so it starts out public class dog with an open curly bracket here, and then we have a matching curly bracket, and you can see this is all in the green, so this encompasses the whole class component. And then the first thing it has up here is your instance variables. So it gave us a default instance variable here. Integer x is not really relevant to us in our dog class, but we can do string with a breed here. So string is so private says I don't want anybody else to be able to see it, only the objects that are created from this class. And your instance variables are always defined as private. Okay. String is my data type. So I'm going to store textual string data inside of here, and string has a capital S, so because it's a class, it's a complex data type, and the name of my variable is breed. And if you remember back to week 1, variable names they can only contain characters, numbers, and underscore, and they have to start with a character. And classes, the Java conventions for a class is that they start with a capital letter, which is why our dog starts with a capital letter and string starts with a capital letter, because those are classes. But everything else should start with a lowercase letter, which is why our instance variable breed starts with a lowercase letter. So we can have another one here, string, and we can be the name of the dog, and private, integer, the age of the dog. And we'll just stop with those three things. Obviously, we could get into a lot more detail with regards to the dog. I mean, we could get the height and the weight and vaccination status and a lot of other things, but for the sake of time, we'll just start with these three instance variables. Okay. The next thing we would do is we would write a constructor, and I don't know if you recall, which we're going to go over this stuff again and again. So by about week 4, you'll be like, okay, stop telling me about constructors, right? But a constructor is used to construct or create an object. So our class is our blueprint, and we can't live in our blueprint. So this is just defining the whole structure for our object. And an object is the house that gets built from our blueprint, right? So you can live in the house. So our object will have the actual data. The blueprint just defines what that data is going to be and how it can be accessed. So the whole point of the constructor is to initialize these instance variables to some starting value. Whenever you're referring to an instance variable, you're going to use the keyword this. So it's this.breed equals. And then if we're doing an empty constructor, meaning the parentheses are empty, so this would be our default or our vanilla constructor, then we're going to set these instance variables to default or initial values. And these could be whatever the programmer determines or whatever the designer of the code determines these initial values to be. So they could be null values. Oh, there you go, German Shepherd. That's awesome. I actually have, well, technically I only have one dog, which is a black lab mix, but I'm also watching my brother's dog for 3 years. So I guess you could say I have two dogs, I guess, and he is a blue heeler. And so the whole time I'm talking to you, he is butting me with his nose because he wants me to throw a ball with him. So if I seem distracted at time, it's because I'm getting head-butted by this dog. All right, so breed, we're going to set this to a default value because we don't know it, so maybe it's going to be unknown. Okay, it could be a null value or something else that we determine, or mutt or whatever, but we need to do this for each one of these instance variables. So I'm going to set the name also to unknown, and then the age, I'm going to set that equal to 0. Okay, so this is a vanilla or default or empty constructor, nothing inside the parentheses, and I'm just setting each one of my instance variables to a default value. Now I can create a second constructor that, so this could be default constructor here in this Java doc, and this one could be my explicit constructor, and an explicit constructor is actually going to contain some values. And so those values in the Java docs, I'll define parameter in breed, and then that is going to be the value, value of the breed. And then I will have another parameter, parameter called in name, and that will be the name of the dog. And my last parameter will be in age, and that will be the age of the dog. Okay, so I'm going to define those inside of these parentheses here, and I need to tell it what data type it is and what the name of my variable is. So I'm going to have a string, and then I'm calling it in breed, string in name, and integer in age. All right, so let me just kind of go over this. So this one was my empty or default constructor, nothing in the parentheses. This is going to be my explicit constructor where I'm providing some explicit values here. So the first value is going to be the breed that's coming in. It's data type string, and I'm going to refer to this value by this variable name InBreed. The next one is also data type string, and I'm going to refer to it by this variable InName. And the last is integer, and I'm going to refer to it by the variable InAge. Now the data types have to match, so because I'm putting a string data, and an integer here. So those are not optional, you know, and I can't change those. They're either going to be string or integer or double or whatever is a valid data type. But these variable names, you can call them anything you want to. I could have called them X, Y, and Z. But what I like to do is kind of use the keyword in to say it's coming into my program. This is input coming in, and it's the breed. So that's just why I chose those names. You can choose any name that you want. It doesn't matter, but those names just make sense to me, and so that's what I went with. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this dot breed equal to what's contained in my InBreed variable. So whatever value comes in here, I'm now going to set my instance variable equal to what's contained inside of that variable. And the same for my name will become InName, and my age will become InAge. Okay, so the values that get passed to this when this particular component gets called, passed inside of here, will now be placed into my instance variables, and they'll contain it. So maybe I pass in German Shepherd Max, who's 2, and then my instance variables would then end up containing the values German Shepherd Max and 2. Okay? All right. So those are the constructors. So we have 2 different ways to create an object, or create our houses, right? So create our objects, we can do one with default values, or we can do one with explicit values. And then we come down here and we'll do some other ways to manipulate these instance variables. So we'll be using a lot of what we call set and get methods in this class. So we'll have set methods that allow us to change or set the value of an instance variable. And then we'll have get methods which allow us to get or retrieve the values of an instance variable. Okay. Yes, exactly. A set is a mutator. It mutates or changes the value, and a get is an accessor. It just accesses the value, but it doesn't change it. Excellent. Tell you've been doing some reading, so awesome. All right, so our Java doc here, so we're just going to make this I'm going to copy this actually. All right, so this first one, I'm going to make it a set method. I'm not going to return anything. So the format for a method is public, means anybody's allowed to use it. This next value is the return data type, and if nothing's returned, it's going to contain a value of void. If something's returned, it contains the data type of what's being returned. Then the name of your method, and then any explicit parameters would be defined in here. Now for a set method, in this particular case, I'm not going to return anything, so it's going to be void. The name of my set method will be like set breed. And then the value I'm going to set it to is going to be contained in here. So it's going to be, again, it's data type string, and I'm just going to go with the same variable name, InBreed. I could use something else. Let's call it something different. Let's call it new breed, because it's a new value to be contained in the breed. And so it's going to work the same way. This dot breed equals, and then the value, the name that I've given it here. So new breed. Keep wanting to spell it bread for some reason. Okay, so and this would be change the breed of the dog, and it has one parameter called new breed, new bread, and it's the new value for breed. But it does not have a return statement, so that line would go. Okay. All right, so for this other one, I'm going to do the get breed, so I'm going to kind of do the pair together. So this is going to return a data type string, which is the data type of my breed instance variable is data type string. So this is going to return a data type string. I'm just going to call this get breed. or get bred. And this does not need an explicit parameter, so I don't need to know any other information. I'm just going to return this value. And so here I'm just going to return this dot breed. So I'm just returning the value that's contained inside of my instance variable. I know, it's like at work I cannot spell the word encounter for some reason. I always flip my T and my N. All right, so return the breed of the dog. Okay, and this does not have a parameter, so that one will go away, but it does have a return statement, so the breed of the dog. All right, so I can then, I'm just going to, because I'm inherently lazy, so I'm going to copy these statements, and I'm going to do the same thing. Instead of a set and get breed, I'm going to change the name of the dog, and we'll just call it new name. Exactly. Now, of course, then I'm also prone to mistype something when I do this, but fairly simple stuff, so hopefully not. So just everywhere you see the word breed, I'm replacing it with the name. And then this will return the name of the dog. And that's also data type string. All right, and then we'll have one more here for the age. Now the age is just a little bit different because the age is data type integer as opposed to string. So we just need to make a couple additional adjustments. So instead of a data type string here as my explicit parameter, it'll be a data type integer. And yes, there's probably a find replace here somewhere, but I am on this path now and I'm just going to stick with it. Okay, age, and this data type that will be returned will be integer for the age. Okay. Oops, and I capitalized that age, which is not good. All right, so what we've got here is we've defined our class, which is dog. We've got a Java duck at the top that defines what the purpose of this whole class is, this program. We have some 3 instance variables that we defined, all of access level private, which means only the object is allowed to know or access them, and that's a key concept called encapsulation, which we'll talk about in week 3 or 4. We have 2 constructors. We have a default or empty constructor that sets our 3 instance variables to default values. And then we have an explicit constructor that's going to set them to actual values here. Both of these are used to create an object. So when the constructor gets called, that's the point that the object is actually created in memory and begins to exist and contains information. Then we have a set and get method for each of our explicit parameters. So a set and get for the breed. The set breed will change the breed to a new value, and the get breed returns the value. And the same for the set and get for the name, and the set and get for the age. So I'm just going to compile this and make sure it's going to work. Okay, so I compiled cleanly, which is wonderful. And so now I don't have the little dashy lines through here, and now I can actually do things with this particular object. So I can actually write a program. So I'm going to write a program here. So I'm just going to call this dog demo. Okay, and this will be, it's still a class. So this is going to be our program. I'm going to come over here and copy this statement because I never remember the format of this statement. And I don't need all of this stuff here in this dog demo because this is going to be a program, not a user-defined class. So I'm just going to get rid of all that junk in there. And this main method allows me to execute code and stuff. So the other one is the blueprint that defines my user-defined data type, right? And now this is an actual program that you would run. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this program here to create objects and things. Okay, so this is my dog demo. So I've got my dog class, which is not wanting to move. There we go. over here, and then I've got this dog demo. This is the actual program. So if I'm in here, I want to create an object. So if I'm going to create an object, I need to give my object a name, right? And so I might call it like dog1. So when you're creating an object, the format is always exactly the same. You go with the name, the class name of that you're creating for this object. So we're creating a dog object, right? And I'm going to then give my object a name. So maybe this is pet1 is the name I'm going to use. It could be anything I want to. Just has to follow the rules of variables and be meaningful. So pet1 equals new dog. Okay, that's the name of my constructor. And then your open and closing parentheses and your semicolon. Now this all depends upon which constructor I am calling. If I'm calling my empty or default constructor, then I need it to match here. I'll have nothing in my parentheses. Okay. If I'm calling my explicit constructor, I need to provide 3 values: string value, and integer value. So we're going to first start out with this empty or default constructor. Well, we're not going to get any user input yet because we're not really ready for that. That'll start about week 4. But it will let me create an object. So this statement will create the object. It sets aside memory in, or sets aside space in memory. And now this pet1 contains all of this information in my blueprint, and I can live in it. So pet1 has these 3 instance variables, and their values would be unknown, unknown, and 0, because I called my empty or default constructor. So we can actually print this stuff out. So we can do a system.out.println, which is what you guys use to do your house display, right? Or you're about to use to do your house display for homework 1. And in here, I can say breed is plus pet1 dot get breed. So I can call the get breed method over here, which is going to return to me the value of the breed. So when I created this, my breed should have been set to the value of unknown. So if I print this statement out, it should say get breed, breed is unknown is what it should say. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the name and the age. So name is and age is. So I'll call my get name function to return to me the value of my name instance variable, and the get age to return to me the name of my age instance variable, or the value contained in my age instance variable. So let me just compile this. Not very fancy program, but now, oh, wrong one. But now I don't have little dash or lines through it, so it's compiled clean. I didn't have any syntax errors. And you also see this dashed line here. This shows a dependency. This particular program is using this one, so it's dependent now upon that program. Okay, so I can right click on this guy now and click on my void main, which will execute my code, and then you just click OK here. And then you can see it came up and gave the output: breed is unknown, name is unknown, and age is 0, which is what we expected because I called the empty or default constructor and it was setting those to those exact values. Now I can come in here and change things, and I can then do pet1.set breed, and I'm back to bread again, and I can change this to German Shepherd. And this should now change it. Now I'm calling it. So over here is my set method, right? And I'm taking in a value of data type string. So I'm passing in a string value of German Shepherd. This value German Shepherd is going to come over here and be placed in this new breed variable. Okay, so now new breed contains the value German Shepherd. And then my this.breed instance variable is now going to be set to whatever's inside of my new breed variable, which is German Shepherd. So this should change my instance variable for this particular object to now contain the value German Shepherd. Oops. Oh yeah, no problem at all. I should double check and I don't think this is the homework, but yeah, I'll upload this to the week 2 meet session. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we're going to change the name as well. So I did called the set name and I'm changing it to Max, and likewise in the set name I'm expecting when I call it nothing's returned, but I'm expecting a string variable to be passed. So here's my string variable inside, and this string literal value is going to be placed inside this variable new name, and then I'm going to assign my instance variable this.name equal to the contents of new name. So now my instance variable should then contain the value Max. And then last pet1.setAge, and I'll give it a value of 2. And so this is an integer value, and if we go down to set age, it's expecting an integer value, so the 2 will come over and be placed in new age, and then this .age will be set to the value of new age, so it can contain a value of 2. So if I copy these statements and just paste them down here, if these all worked correctly, these set methods work correctly, when I now call my get methods the second time, they should now all be changed, right? It should now all contain these new values. So let me go ahead and compile it. I'm going to stick one more system.out.print statement in here after changes. Compile it, and then we can come over here and I can rerun it with these changes. And you will see the first time the breed is unknown, the name is unknown, and the age is 0. Then I made my changes, and now my breed is German Shepherd, my name is Max, and my age is 2. Okay. Now I could have called the explicit constructor. So the format is very similar. It's still class name, so the class name is still dog. I need to give my object a name, so I'll call it pet2 this time, equals new, dog is the name of my constructor, but now my explicit parameter, or my explicit constructor, is expecting me to pass 3 values: string, string, and integer. And the first one will be the breed, the second one is the name, and the third one is the age. Okay, so breed can be lab, name can be Duke, and the age can be 14. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this stuff again. But it should be pet2 is what I'm doing here. So, and let me put a print line statement in here. And this will be pet2. All right, so if I compile this guy and run it, here's our original pet1 stuff. So we called the defaulter empty constructor and everything was unknown, unknown, 0. We made some changes and set the values. Here's pet2, but we called the explicit constructor this time, passing it specific values, and those values are there. So we passed it when we called it lab, Duke, and 14, and so the explicit one set it explicitly to values lab, Duke, and 14. But just because I set those, well, it is faster as long as you know those values. Sometimes you know the values, sometimes you won't know the values. You know, it just all depends upon the nature of the program. If you know everything, then absolutely you want to go with the explicit constructor. But if you don't know everything, you may have to start with the empty or default constructor and then add the values in later. It just all depends upon the design of the code. And we can then still change these values. Just because we use the explicit constructor doesn't mean that they cannot be changed. So let me go ahead and change my pet1 references to pet2 down here. So we will change it to be, instead of a lab, a poodle, and Fluffy, and age 10. Okay, so we'll compile it and rerun it. And here's our original pet 1 stuff, and then here's pet 2, so we changed it, and you can see the values are all now different. So this is just kind of a real simple, I mean, not a lot of fancy stuff in here. You know, we don't have any mathematical computations or any, you know, major things, but it's a very straightforward, simple, you know, just kind of showing you like how we'll go about defining the class and then how you would actually write a program. So this here is your class. It's a user-defined data type. We've now defined this dog data type out there. We can create hundreds of dog options, or, you know, 0 to infinity dog objects from this one particular thing. All of these actions, so not only is the data part of it, so the data for this dog object contains string, string, and integer data, but we've also got means of creating the objects with the 2 different constructors we created, and then we've got these other methods that allow us to manipulate the data. So that's the whole thing with the object oriented, is we've created a new data type that not only includes data values but also contains the means to manipulate that data value as well. And then over here we created a program that actually takes advantage of this data type that we've created by building our objects and calling the different methods to manipulate those objects. Okay, so that's kind of I think one of the hardest things is to think is this isn't really a program over here, this is a data type that we've defined. And then over here is a program where we're taking advantage of the fact that we wrote this data type. Okay. Now I promised you Java docs, which are really just so cool. So if you come out here under BlueJ and up at the top it says Tools, Project Documentation. If you click on Project Documentation, it will generate the documentation based upon those Java docs. So it did both my dog and my dog demo because both of those classes existed in the project, but I didn't really do any Java docs in my dog demo. But if you click on the dog class, it shows you here where it falls under java.lang.object, so it shows you what package it falls under. It shows you the 2 constructors, and you can click on it, and it gives you the description that we typed in there, default constructor for the objects of the class dog. And then down here it showed you, here's the explicit constructor and here's the parameters that can be applied to it. Up here it also gives us each one of the methods. So here's our get age, get breed, get name, and then our set methods. It shows you what the return data type is if anything, and what parameters. And you can click on any one of these and it'll give you the information. So you can see it's like just by doing those Java docs at the top of each one of our methods, we get this great piece of documentation like automatically generated for us, which is awesome, that you don't have to create all this yourself. And they all look like this. Like we'll be looking, I don't know if we'll look at Java docs this week on Thursday, but definitely next week if we don't. And you'll see even the Java docs generated by Sun Microsystems, they all follow this exact same format. So you can look at any documentation for any Java package or Java object class out there, and it's all going to follow this exact same format. So you'd be able to take a Java doc and interpret it and know how to use a particular class in just this exact same way. Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the beauty of these whole online meet sessions is that they're recorded and you can watch them over and over and over again. You know what I mean? Or just portions of it or whatever. So they're available, yeah, to be seen whenever, you know, you're ready to see them. Yeah, I would like to think that the live is better, but you know, second best is definitely the recording. And some of the students who come to the live like the fact that they can go back and watch the recording if they're like working on the homework and they're not quite getting something. So, you know, kind of serves a good purpose, I guess. You know, it's kind of funny. Last semester, right in the middle of the semester, I did not realize, but the USB port on my headset disintegrated on me. And so here I went to plug in to hold my chat session, and I had no microphone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So my husband, Jem that he is, immediately takes off to run to Walmart to try to pick me up a new headset, which is not going to help me with the class because I live out in Plain City. So it's a good bit of a drive to the closest Walmart. And so in the meantime, I'm trying to just like type everything up, which is painful when you're holding a whole chat session with just your instructor typing to you. And so what I ended up doing was taking my iPad, and you can download an app for the Franklin Adobe stuff, the Adobe Connect. You can actually download an app. So I downloaded the app on my iPad, and I use the iPad as my microphone and then my computer to do the PowerPoint stuff. So you may very well be able to download the app on your phone and watch the Adobe Connect if you're so inclined. But if you're traveling somewhere nice, I would not blame you at all if you just watch the recording. Well, great. Is there anything else? I mean, this is kind of like what I had planned if nobody had any questions of going over tonight. Is there any other questions you have for me? Was there anything on the homework or? Oh, well, great. Well, I mean, I won't keep you any longer unless there's something else that you want to go over. Other than that, I didn't really have anything else. We'll probably, I don't know if we'll introduce probably lab one on Thursday as well. So the lab files are out on Piazza and can be downloaded, but you can definitely take a look on Thursday. I think if not, then definitely next Tuesday I'll introduce them. But all right. Well, you have a great evening, and I'll upload this up to the meet session. So have a great night. Yes, I know. Well, he just ran out, so hopefully he'll leave me alone for a little bit. But yep, I will be throwing a sock or a ball or something here for the next 10 or 15 minutes for sure. Good night.